Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the first annual Halloween special where I'm going to be talking about Halloween themed movies once every week on Saturdays and basically until the 31st of October. Uh, so yeah, and I will give you guys a little bit of a spoiler for the 31st of October. Since it is Halloween, I will be talking about the 1978 classic Halloween. But stay tuned to that. But anyway, this week we're actually gonna have two separate reviews for this week because I've actually wanted to review these films for a long time, and I did technically review them, but in a very short capacity. And I thought, hey, might as well get to them now. But if you guys don't know the gist of my channel, hello and welcome to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good, or maybe one of the best movies of all time, or I review stuff that's mostly or are just garbage and should remain in the depths of hell. Certainly, these two films I'm going to be reviewing throughout today, I will be posting throughout today, are not crappy films. In fact, the first one, which I will be discussing today, is one of the best 80s films of all time. And as you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, today I'm going to be talking about Ghostbusters, released in 1984, directed by Ivan Reitman, and released on June 7th of 1984. With a budget of $30 million, domestically it made over $242 million, and worldwide it made over $295 million, which means this film was a massive success when it came out. And I mean, who hasn't watched Ghostbusters? It's a classic film, and I am talking about the 1984 version, not this piece of crap that no one should ever watch. And I think we could just toss that thing aside and just make sure that no one ever watches this. I don't even care what side I flip it over. This is a piece of crap, and I will be reviewing this in a future Halloween special. Not this one though, because I'm going to review good movies. So let's just get this piece of shit out of here. And let's talk about the good Ghostbusters film. And yes, like I did say earlier, I am reviewing two films today, which are going to be Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 1, really quickly, to kind of mention it, I've seen Ghostbusters multiple times. It's one of my favorite 80s films of all time. But I haven't actually seen Ghostbusters 2 until what obviously I had to watch it for this for the for this first Halloween special, and I will be talking about my thoughts later today. But anyway, this video will be all about the first film, Ghostbusters. Um, so really going to talk about the plot really quick. After the members of a team of after the members of a team of scientists, which are Egon played by Harold Ramis, Ray played by Dan Aykroyd, and Peter played by Bill Murray, lose their custody cushy positions at a university in New York City, they decided to become Ghostbusters to wage a high-tech battle with the supernatural for money. They stumble upon a gateway to another dimension, a doorway that will release evil upon the city. The Ghostbusters must now save New York City from complete destruction. Now, as I clearly mentioned earlier, I love this movie. I've seen this film multiple times, always around Halloween, or in the month of October, and this film never gets old. It's fantastic. Um, and you may guys, as I said, I've seen this film multiple times. Guys may be surprised that I actually didn't start watching the movie until a few years ago, because I had the original DVD version, um, and I never thought to actually watch the movie. I just had it in my collection to say, oh yeah, I have Ghostbusters on some kind of format. And then a few years ago, I actually, you know what? I'm gonna watch it for the very first time, and I watched it, and it was incredible, and I still watch it mostly every Halloween. Um, but like I said earlier, I never really saw Ghostbusters 2 until doing the review for this first annual Halloween special for the channel. But anyway, like I said, thoughts on this film will be coming up later today. Probably very late. But anyway, let's talk about the cast. So we obviously have the main star is Peter Venkman, played by the fantastic Bill Murray, which I never really heard of outside of Ghostbusters, but a few years ago when I started doing research about this film for a possible movie review, back then, I discovered that he was in Stripes with Harold Ramis, and I believe also directed by Ivan Reitman. He was also in Caddyshack, which was directed by Howard Ramis, um, and Groundhog's Day, which I think came out after this film. And the only really film that I've actually known I knew Bill Murray from was. Anyway, as I was saying, the only really thing I knew Bill Murray from besides Ghostbusters was the 1988 film Scrooged, um, which was actually the first film that he made um, after he took a break from acting ever since the first Ghostbusters film. He took a little break. He made I think one cameo in Little Shop of Horrors, but besides that, he never really started anything else until Scrooge, which I will be covering in this year in the Christmas video series I will be doing for this year, and Scrooge will be on that list. Um, but yeah, anyway, so Bill Murray, what do I need to say? Really, all of the actors in this film and in Ghostbusters 2 are great. Um, and like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Howard Ramis all have fantastic chemistry with each other, including Ernie Hudson, which comes more or less later in the film, but I'll just get to him. Um, yeah, Peter Venkman, played by Bill Murray again. Um, still great as usual. He made a cameo in Zombieland, where he did a very great parody of Ghostbusters. And obviously, ever since Ghostbusters 2, there's been the Ghostbusters 3 question going around a lot. And I'll be completely honest. I mean, honestly, again, like after this film was made, there was no chance of there being a quote unquote Ghostbusters 3. But I think the real killer was. Actually, I'll get to that later. Anyway, Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz. Um, well, I should go. Peter is really the mouth of the team. He really is like the one that goes after the chicks, and just like more is down to earth out of the three main Ghostbusters. Ray Stantz is the optimistic. He's basically like he's always excited um, about everything that's going on, and never really he out of all of them, he seems most like like a child, especially with the way they act about certain things. Where usually people will go, "Oh God, we might need to help him," which I will get to in my favorite scenes. There's a scene that most of you are probably know what I'm talking about, where one of the characters has something happen to him, and Ray is just sitting there basically just like, wow, like in awe, like they made basically that one of made first encounter with a ghost. Which is probably one of the funniest scenes in the film, where it's like, oh, should I feel bad for Peter getting slime? Or actually, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I guess spoilers, but I guess you guys know where I'm talking about this, because probably most of you have seen Ghostbusters, but I'll save that for later. But it's like, should I care about the thing that's just happened to this person, or about Ray Stantz being excited over first contact with a ghost? And like that's like the funny thing about it. And then Egon is the brain. He basically is like the one that's coming up with most of the equipment with Ray by his side. I mean, yeah, Ray helps, but he doesn't really like know all the stuff that Egon does. Like Egon really just like is like the brain, like I said. He doesn't. I don't think he ever smiles throughout the entire first film. I don't think he ever emotes like emotes anytime. He's just always is very stern and doesn't really crack a smile or a frown. He's just stern face, doesn't really give any kind of emotion, which I guess until the end of the film, which I will get to. But yeah, which I guess kind of works in his character because again, he's the brain of the team, so really he shouldn't be like being that concerned about anything. But when the things start happening near the end of the film, you can kind of see that like, okay, he isn't just I'm like the science person. I can fix everything. He is terrified about what's going on, which I'll get to later. Um, and unfortunately, as I kind of alluded earlier, I think the main reason why we don't have a Ghostbusters 3 is because of Howard Ramis. If you guys haven't known, um, Howard Ramis did pass away in 2014. I don't know what the exact causes were, but it is sad that we don't have one of the main four core original Ghostbusters with us anymore. We still have Henry Hudson, we still have Dan Aykroyd, and we still have Bill Murray. But it's unfortunate that we don't have Howard Ramis with us anymore. So this video is dedicated, and the next one, to Howard Ramis. Um, we have Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett, who you guys may know as Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise. More in particular, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection, which I will be covering in a future. I will be covering all of them in future installments of the Halloween special. In future years, probably I'll do one of them every year. Um, Actually, I might do. Now that I'm thinking about it, I might actually do the first Alien this year for Halloween, but I'll get to that. I will think about it. Um, and then we have Ernie Hudson, plays Winston Zeddemore, who is basically the fourth Ghostbuster that comes in about the halfway point of the film after the Ghostbusters are established as a business. Um, and he's okay. I know I didn't. I know I kind of skipped over Sigourney Weaver, but I already skipped over Ernie Hudson, so I won't really mention him. He is fine. He does kind of feel like he is like the kind of person that's just thrown into the mix without really any kind of like explanation. He's just kind of just thrown in. And it's just like, okay, we need you to do this. Make sure to go through with it. And it's like, oh, okay. But granted, like I said, he does pop up like around the halfway point, so he really doesn't get to do anything. In the sequel, he does get to actually do a little bit more, which I'll get to when I get to that. And we also have Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett, which I already mentioned, is also well known to play Ellen Ripley in the Alien franchise. And she does great with her performance as Dana Barrett, who's basically Peter's love interest for the two Ghostbusters films. We have Annie Potts as Janine Melentz. I don't know how to say that last name. I'm very sorry. I most likely butchered it. So basically, Janine is basically the desk clerk basically for the Ghostbusters, who basically gets all the calls in saying whatever they got a ghost or not, and yeah. We also have Rick Moranis as Louis Tully, who will go on after this to be in Little Shop of Horrors and Spaceballs with Mel Brooks, which I will be actually reviewing. Probably, I know I will be reviewing Spaceballs in the future. I will probably also review a Little Shop of Horrors as well in the near future. But I don't think either of them are as good as his role as Louis Tully in the Ghostbusters films. And his role, like I said about Winston, his role is significantly stepped up in the sequel, which again I will be talking about in that video. We also have William Atherton as Walter Peck, which I don't know if I'm correct about this, but I believe he is also the same guy that popped up in Die Hard. And Die Hard 2 as the reporter, the red-headed reporter from Die Hard 1 and 2. And I've heard about the hate mail that he gets over the character of Walter Peck. And guys, he is a character from a comedy movie. I get that that most people don't like the character because he shuts down the containment unit and basically releases all the ghosts that they ever caught, basically causing a worldwide panic. I get that, but just hate the character for what he is in the context of the movie. Don't hate the actor because he played a character. Because honestly, that's kind of screwed up. Um, it's basically bullying, but not in school, like not like the PG school version. Like it's like movie, like most likely NC-17 rated stuff, and it's like it's not cool. Um, and I really don't get why. If it's literally just because that he played a dick character in a comedy movie, you guys need to, kind of something's wrong with your mind. Um, but anyway, Walter Peck obviously is the kind of douchebag of the film, who basically, like I said, shuts down the containment unit and basically releases all the ghosts that the Ghostbusters have basically ever caught, and basically sends worldwide panic throughout the whole city of New York. And I think besides his two scenes that are in the film, he never pops up in any other in like the sequel or in the rest of this film either. Uh, there's the scene obviously. Well, actually, no. He has three scenes. He has the meeting with Peter Venkman, and then he comes back to shut down the containment unit. And there's like the final scene with him and the Ghostbusters within the White House, confronting the mayor, played by David Morgan-Lies. Um, which he will actually return for the sequel, which was honestly a very big surprise. I was like, oh, they brought him back? That's actually kind of cool. Um, and finally, on the cast that I want to talk about is Gozer, the villain of the film, who is played by I think it was some German lady or something like that, who was like a model. Zenitia, Zia, or so basically, I'm just gonna call them Gozer because I don't know how to say that name, and I know I'm gonna most likely butcher it, so I'm not gonna say it. So Gozer, he, I don't know whether to call it a he or a she because it's played by a female actress or a model, I should say, because she doesn't really actually talk. It's mostly dubbed over by someone else. Who it was? No idea. Unlike how I know who voiced Vigo in the second film, but again, I will talk about that in that video. Um, but Gozer doesn't really pop up until the end of the film. Uh, when he finally makes a embody appearance. Um, and yeah, I guess that's really it for the cast. And now I want to talk about the special effects for the film, which were handled by Boss Film, which were at the time in the 80s one of the biggest companies in terms of special effects, along with ILM or Industrial Light and Magic, who did the Star Wars and Star Trek films, and some other companies that I can't really think about. But the two big ones in the 80s were Industrial Light and Magic and Boss Film, which was actually led by Richard Edlund, who actually left ILM to make his own company, Boss Film, and their first film was Ghostbusters. And for their first film, the special effects are fantastic, and yet somehow this film at the Oscars did not win the Academy Award for special effects. It went to Temple of Doom. And I think Temple Doom has worse special effects than this film. And this film is over like 30 years old. And it's actually about to turn 40 in a few years, which is insane. And we actually just passed, to really quickly mention it here, we did just pass the 30th anniversary for Ghostbusters 2, which is also insane. But, yeah, to tell you, like, and, like, honestly, like, comparing the special effects between the 1984 Ghostbusters film and the 2016 Ghostbusters film, it's pretty obvious which one is the better film. It's obviously going to be this film because they mostly did it practical with opticals and not like blue screen or green screen and like digital compositing. They did it all optical and it looks fantastic. There there are some scenes where you could tell when it's either not like a noticeable that it's fake, but it's like it just looks a little incomplete. But I think that's the charm of it because then that shows that you can literally make any kind of special effects out of making something into like a monster or something, and you could film it in a way that looks realistic. And I think that's the real charm of like old films from like the 70s and 80s, and maybe and a little into the early 90s, like with Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park. Because yeah, granted those films use CGI, but in Jurassic Park's case, it used CGI for the wide shots and animatronics for the close-ups. It's the good blend when stuff like now, like with the 2016 Ghostbusters film, all of the visual effects and special effects are CGI. They're done in the computer, and it's really obvious. I think the only thing I actually liked about the visual effects in this film was when they took the logo and made that into like the structure form for the villain, and it kind of made itself into a big giant version of the logo, which I guess they actually kind of say it what the design was based off of. It was based off of the intro for the cartoon. Um, but still, it's technically based off of the logo, and I think that's the only actual good special effect in the whole film, because the rest of these are shit. But anyway, I'll be talking about more about this film in the future. But anyway, let's get that out of the way. Let's talk about the original. The original still. Um, the proton beams. I think it's 5 separate layers of optical processing in order to make it look as realistic as possible, and it looks fantastic. Um, and real credit to the special effects guys at Boss Film to bring out something that looks actually like fantastic for a 1984 film. Unfortunately, they weren't hired on for the second film because I think by then the company went out of business. Well, I'm not exactly sure why, but by the time in 1989, when they were making the second film, Boss Film, I think they were doing some other films around the time, so they weren't able to get on to the second film, which had to be taken over by ILM. And I will be talking about more about that again in the Ghostbusters 2 review. Um, but yeah, I think Boss Film did a fantastic job with the special effects, and it really sucks that they didn't get the Oscar for that year for the special effects, and had to lose to Temple of Doom, which had way crappier effects than this film. Like you can literally tell when the blue screen is obvious because it has washed out matte lines, like and like stuff like that, and it's just like very noticeable that it was done on a green screen or a blue screen. When in this film, it's done optically, and it looks flawless. Like it looks like it's in real life. Um, but yeah. Anyway, um, really quickly before I get on to the fun facts and favorite scenes, I want to talk about the music, which was composed by Elmer Bernstein, which um, is one of the best scores in the 1980s, along with like, some of these Star Trek scores and, um, like the Superman scores, um, and, other stuff around then. I think Elmer Bernstein's compositions for Ghostbusters are fantastic. And I think last year or this year they released a new version of the soundtrack, which I believe has almost all of the tracks from the film, because the original quote unquote complete version of the soundtrack from 2003 is out of print, so like you couldn't really get it unless you paid like hundreds of dollars on it for it on eBay. So obviously they had to make a new release, and I personally haven't gotten it yet, but I really want to because obviously with the score and stuff, sounding fantastic, and I think anyone who wants to get into film scores should really get Ghostbusters along with like Superman the movie and Jurassic Park. You know, like some of the more classic like soundtracks you can ever get, along with like RoboCop from with from Puzzle Doors and like I said with Superman and Jurassic Park by John Williams. Those are like quintessential soundtracks to get used to. And then the fun fact I have is, did you know that John Belushi is still technically in the final film of Ghostbusters in spirit? So yeah, John Belushi did pass away before the actual, I think, before production started on not on Jurassic Park, on Ghostbusters. Uh, if you guys know John Belushi, he obviously worked with Dan Aykroyd on a little film called The Blues Brothers, and worked a lot with John Landis on like The Blues Brothers and also Animal House, which the character that John Belushi played in Animal House is kind of similar to Slimer in a way, which is why some people say, or that's what Dan Aykroyd said when I believe in one of the commentaries, that Slimer is kind of the spirit of John Belushi, because of kind of his character in um, in Animal House, where he basically just eats and drinks all the time, which is basically what Slimer does. He just goes around, gets food and drinks, and just you know takes it all in. And obviously he's a ghost, so obviously it falls through him. So it doesn't really work as it goes, but yeah. Um, but anyways, going on to my favorite scenes. My first one is the Cedric Hotel scene, or like the whole set piece of the Cedric Hotel, where it's going from like them searching for the ghost, which turns out to be Slimer, to them going into the banquet hall and just trashing the place, but managing to get Slimer as their first ghost. I think that whole scene in the banquet hall is iconic. Like, if you think of 80s scenes, you think of like the drug factory scene from RoboCop and the banquet hall scene from Ghostbusters. Like, those two scenes are like the most iconic scene, like one of the most iconic scenes from film, and some of the most iconic from the 80s. Um, I think another favorite scene of mine is when, obviously, like, Sigourney Weaver trying to get past Rick Moranis' room, or Dana trying to get past Lewis's room without Lewis like trying to talk to her, because it's like he could somehow hear like the tiniest little footsteps by her, and then be like, oh hey, and then like start chatting with her for like 5 minutes. Um, which I don't think is possible, but sure, it's movie logic, so I can't really argue with that. And every time he stops talking to her, he gets locked out of his room. So it's like, how many times have you? You probably done this millions of times. Um, I think my other favorite scene will be the final set piece in the that big giant like hotel, which is basically like the antenna to like get Gozer back from like hell or something like that, and like um the whole battle with with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like the whole realization of like okay, when Peter's just like, okay, everyone just clear your minds up and don't think of anything, and as soon as he says that, it goes just like, oh yeah, you already chose the form. And then Peter's like asking like all like each one like, did you think of anything? He's like, no. Like he turns to Winston and goes, did you think of anything? No. Did you think of anything, Egon? No. I didn't think of anything. And they all turned to Ray, and it's like, I sorry, I couldn't help myself. And you know, and then obviously the manifestation of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, where he just goes like, everyone's just like looking around, like looking at Ray, and he just goes, it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it's like the initial, and then like the shot of the street as Stay Puft turns the corner, and um, and like all of a sudden like all the people like crashing into each other with cars, and like everyone just starts running away from this big giant marshmallow sailor, and it's just and obviously the final battle when they obviously had to do the one thing that Egon said, don't do, or else you basically will all die, and that is cross the streams. You don't ever cross the streams. But for this one instance where it's either life or death, they take the risk of crossing the streams in order to reversing the gate and destroying the node on the top of the hotel, and obviously destroying the Stay Put Marshmallow Man. Which I guess another interesting fun fact is, if some of you don't know, is that um when Stay Puft is destroyed and the little chunks of like marshmallows start falling down, and like obviously the big plop on Peck is actually, I believe, shaving cream. They just filled up big giant buckets of shaving cream and just dumped it. Again, this is 1984, so I don't think actual marshmallow cream was around at the time, and so they just, and shaving cream was obviously a thing around then. So there's just like, we just stick, we just fill up a whole container or like a whole bucket of shaving cream and just dump it all out, and then people would think that's marshmallow. I really hope that no one tasted it, because that must have been horrible. Um, and so yeah. But anyway, this is a fantastic film, and I think everyone should watch this at some point. And I think the perfect time would be around Halloween. Um, that's when I always watch it, or in the October season. It's either like it's Ghostbusters and some other films, but mostly it's 99% of the time Ghostbusters. And I'm gonna give this film an 8 out of 10. This is a great film that I think everyone should watch, and you know, just have a great time watching Ghostbusters around Halloween. So anyway, guys, that was my review of Ghostbusters, and stay tuned for later tonight, where I'm gonna be reviewing Ghostbusters 2, released in 1989, and also directed by Ivan Reitman. So like I said, stay tuned for later tonight, where I'm gonna be reviewing Ghostbusters 2. Live long and prosper. Out.